Anthropic just handed away the standard that connects Claude, ChatGPT, and Cursor to your codebase. Today you're building an MCP server from scratch, in Python, in one sitting. MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. The spec's own site describes it as a USB-C port for AI applications, one interface any client can plug into, instead of every app writing its own custom integration. Claude, ChatGPT, VS Code, and Cursor are all listed as supported clients. And it's not a niche experiment anymore. Anthropic's own December 2025 announcement put the numbers at over 10K active public MCP servers, more than 75 connectors in Claude's own directory, and 97M monthly SDK downloads across Python and TypeScript. There are two things called fast MCP, and mixing them up on camera would be a mistake. The Decorator API you're about to use ships inside the official SDK, merged in from the original fast MCP project back in 2024. A separate standalone package, now under Prefect, still exists too. Different install, different maintainers. Here's the shape of every MCP setup. A host app, Claude Code, or Claude Desktop embeds an MCP client. That client talks to your MCP server over stdio, standard in and standard out. Your script never talks to the model directly. It only answers whatever the client asks it. You need Python 3.10 or newer. That's the SDK's own floor. If you don't already have UV, there's a one-line curl installer on Astral's site, or just use pip directly. Then import fastMCP and give your server a name. This helper just shells out to Git and captures setter out. Wrap it in two tools: git log for the commit history, git diff for whatever's uncommitted. Notice the doc strings. The model reads those to decide when to call each one, not the function name. Two more pieces. This resource reads a file straight out of the repo. Notice the URI template, repo file : / with curly brace placeholders. The client fills those in automatically, and this prompt isn't a function that runs. It's a canned instruction template. It hands the model a pre-written task. Run the diff, review it for bugs, suggest a commit message. The SDK's own docs put it in one line. Tools are sort of like post endpoints. They execute code and cause side effects. Resources are sort of like get endpoints. They just load information into context. Prompts are reusable templates for using the other two. Save that file as gitinspector.py and run it through the MCP. Inspector, UV, run MCP dev, gitinspector.py. That's the fastest test loop the SDK ships, no client config needed. It opens a browser on localhost, port 6274. The proxy server sits on 6277. Both numbers spell MCPI and MCPP on a T9 dial pad, a deliberate touch. This inspector just hit its first stable 1.0 release, up from 0.22.0 a week before this recording. Click into the Tools tab, run git log against this repo, and you'll see real commit output come back in the response pane. Here's what actually crossed the wire when you clicked run. Your client sent a JSON RPC request, method tools / call, params carrying the tool name gitlog, and your repo path argument. That message went out over stdio to your server process. Your server ran the actual git command, caught the output, and wrapped it in a JSON RPC result, a content array holding the text you just saw. That response flew back over the same pipe to the client, which handed it to the model as ordinary text. No sockets, no ports opened, just two processes trading JSON lines over std-in and std-out. Wire it into Claude Code with one command. Claude MCP add, transport stdio, name it git inspector. Then after the double dash, the actual launch command, uv run with MCP Python, gitinspector.py. Run /MCP inside a session, and you'll see it listed as connected with its tool count. By the way, I post one of these daily. Subscribe if MCP's new to you. Now just ask in plain English, what were the last 5 commits in this repo? Claude Code calls git log itself and answers from the real output, not from anything you pasted in. Scope matters too. Local keeps it private to you on this machine. Project shares it through a checked-in config file. User makes it available across everything you work on. And Claude MCP list, Claude MCP get, Claude MCP remove handle the rest of the lifecycle. 4 failure modes account for almost every broken server. Printing to stdio on a stdio server corrupts every JSON RPC message. That's rule 1. A relative path in your desktop config breaks under an undefined working directory. Always use absolute paths. Stdio servers only inherit a limited, platform-dependent set of environment variables, so pass what you need explicitly. And error 32602, invalid params, usually means your server sent a sampling or elicitation request to a client that never declared it could handle one. Claude Desktop works the same way, but through a config file instead of a CLI command. On macOS, that's Claude Desktop config.json inside your library, application support Claude folder. Drop in a git inspector block pointing UV at the absolute path to your project folder. 2 gotchas the docs call out directly. That path has to be absolute, not relative, and you may need the full path to the UV binary itself. Get it with which UV. Then fully quit the app, Command Q, not just close the window. Closing the window leaves the old config loaded. Here's the bug everyone hits first. Add one innocent print statement, print debug inside a tool function, and run the server again. The client just breaks, silently or with a garbled error, because that print went to cdout, and cdout is the protocol channel. The docs are blunt about it. Writing to cdout corrupts the JSON RPC messages. The fix is one keyword, print debug file equals sys.cdrr. Do that, and the exact same server works again. Quick timeline, because this protocol is moving fast. December 9th, 2025, exactly a year after MCP launched, Anthropic donated it to the Agentic AI Foundation, a Linux foundation fund co-founded with Block and OpenAI. Today, the current protocol revision is still 2025 to 11 to 25. That's what every client in this video actually speaks. But MCP's own blog already has a release candidate, locked May 21st, 2026, and dated for final release July 28th, 2026, 3 days from this recording, described as the largest revision since launch, stateless architecture, the initialize handshake removed, roots, sampling, and logging deprecated. Nothing here breaks yet. Just don't be surprised when your stable v1 server needs a look in a few weeks. My take, skip the toy add 2 numbers demo you'll see in every other tutorial. The reason this Git Inspector example matters is it's the actual shape of a useful server, a tool that runs a real command, a resource that reads a real file, a prompt that encodes a real workflow, all wired to one data source you already have on disk. And if you're shipping this beyond your own laptop, don't stick with stdio. The SDK's own docs are explicit that streamable HTTP is the recommended transport for production, with stateless HTTP and JSON response both set to true for scalability. stdio is for local dev. SSE is already being phased out. Streamable HTTP is where real deployment goes. One more judgment call. If you're building a reusable integration, multiple clients will use. MCP earns its overhead. If it's one script hitting one API for yourself, skip it. A plain function call beats standing up a server, and a JSON RPC handshake for a single call. That's a full MCP server, tested in the inspector, wired into 2 real clients in under an hour. The protocol's about to get a major rewrite. If you want that walkthrough when it ships, it's coming here first. I post a local AI build daily. See you in the next one.